Happy Wednesday night. Welcome to Deep in the Plus. I'm your host, Rob Whiteside, and tonight we're talking Tarzan. It's very exciting. Be excited. Hey, if you could do me a favor and please, before we go any further, hit the like button. We would appreciate it. It helps people to find the show. Also, a lot of people do a lot of work on this channel, Unplanned Downtime. If you could subscribe to Unplanned Downtime, there's a lot of great content to have. So, business over with. Let's meet the cast, the panel tonight. Miss Emma Cooley. Okay, before we go any further, is everybody going to do a musical thing? Because, Desi?
Kungaloosh.
Okay. Tyler?
Only love can enter here. That's it.
Great.
This is a train wreck already. Thank you guys so much. I feel bad for leading in with the whole ask of the like. No. Stop it. Stop it. We haven't even gotten started yet. But thank you guys for joining us. Thank you guys for being on the panel tonight. We appreciate it. Tonight we're going to be talking about the 1999 animated classic Tarzan, Disney's 37th full-length animated feature, and we talked a lot about Disney animated features over time. I know that a lot of the folks on this panel have talked about some of these features, but this is a very unique one, I feel like, and we'll talk about why for many reasons. But I got to start by addressing, I'm going to go ahead and call it the elephant in the room. Tyler and Desi, you guys kind of dressed alike. I don't know if you were like both going for the Professor Porter look, but
I'm upset that you did not put on your hat to match Emma.
I don't know what you're talking about. But I would say, though, when I asked you guys to dress up for this, I really had something more like this in mind for the two of you, and I don't know why you didn't lead into that.
I
was
wig.
expecting you to pull up a gorilla because of the furry thing.
Listen, I have a brown wig and a ripped crop top to be Jane. I just couldn't find it in time.
Oh, whoa, I'm sorry. You were going to be Jane.
I mean, that makes the most sense.
No, it's fine. We're fine. It's all fine. It's all fine.
It's great.
Yeah, it's just great.
Because
it's just
I'm
great.
super ripped. I would have made a great Tarzan.
Okay. Sure. So with this movie, when we first started last week, we talked about, I gave a couple options for movies that we might do this week, and people overwhelmingly said Tarzan. I feel like a lot of people have an affinity for this movie, but I think that a lot of it comes from the music, but we'll talk about that later. But to me, like for this movie, that's what stands out. When you talk about the Goofy movie, people mostly think, oh, Powerline. Like that's the thing that like pops out at you is the thing from that. Bambi's mom gets shot. Like, there are things from this that, like, you remember. Oh, is that a spoiler? Oh, I am so sorry. I thought everyone here knew that.
What?
Oh, my gosh. Awkward. But for this one, I think it's the music. And it actually starts right out of the gate with that great Phil Collins music as part of the storytelling. So before we get into it any further, I want to kind of ask each of you on the panel, because we all rewatched it for this. But starting with Emma, like, what is your first kind of I guess, interaction with this movie? Did you see it as a kid? Did you see it in the theater? Did you see it on VHS? What's up?
Well, I know I had it on VHS. Kids these days, look up what those are. Look up what VHS are, because I'm old enough to have had them. Anyway, I remember watching that on replay on VHS. That was one of the ones I watched a lot as a kid. I think I might have seen it in the theater. I would have been 3 at the time, so I wouldn't have remembered if I did. But yeah, this is just the score. This Phil Collins music has stuck with me my entire life. And also, not gonna lie, it's part of both mine and another castmate's playlist that we play in the van on tour regularly. But yeah, this to me is I mean, I know it's part of the Disney Renaissance, but it's a classic to me. It's a great film.
Okay, very cool. Desi, how about you? And keep it PG, please.
I was not a fan of the soundtrack because, or wait, are we talking about soundtrack or?
No, just you're like just the movie.
Okay, so my first experience, I guess, was also watching it on VHS, So in 1999, I think I was in high school. However, my siblings are about Emma's age, so I watched it with them. And I guess that's just how I started watching it. And I haven't really watched it since then.
Gotcha. Tyler, did you also watch this with Emma and Desi's siblings?
I assume that at some point in my young life, this movie had a big influence on me. But it didn't really stand out to me that much. As a kid, I didn't like Phil Collins. And I guess the movie just, like, I was way more Aladdin than Tarzan in terms of, like, the Disney movie that was the one that defined my childhood. But, because I haven't seen this, like, since I watched it as a kid. I've never just watched this whole movie all the way through before. So everything came as a great surprise to me when I was rewatching it, like, yesterday.
Okay. Well, welcome back to Tarzan then. This is a movie, it's a tale as old as time. No?
Is
Nobody?
it?
Here as it can be.
Yeah. Edgar Rice Burroughs? Is that, I forget the way that it goes. I probably should know that.
Burroughs Rice.
Yeah, okay, there you go. Was the author, and this story is been around forever. There have been many live action tellings of Tarzan, including a lot with Johnny Weissmuller. So if you ever saw The Great Movie Ride, there was a scene with Tarzan with Jane on one side and Cheetah as herself. But Johnny Weissmuller would fly through with the Tarzan yell and then come back the other way. So but with these live action movies, and I've got a list. You got to have a list. There are a lot of garbage live action versions of this. Tarzan and the Apes, The Revenge of Tarzan, The Son of Tarzan, Adventures of Tarzan, Tarzan and the Golden Lion, Tarzan the Mighty, Tarzan the Fearless, Tarzan Escapes. Ooh, from what? Tarzan's Revenge.
There's a ton of comic book versions as well.
Tarzan finds a son. Not has a son, but finds a son.
Oh my God.
Tarzan's Secret Treasure. That sounds inappropriate.
Isn't Tarzan's New York Adventure like the plot of like the second Tarzan Disney movie? Or at least one part of them or something? Or am I thinking of a completely different thing?
No, I think you've been drinking. It doesn't.
I don't think
so,
I ever
but
saw the sequel.
there were two. So thank you guys for researching. There were a couple other like more modern live action ones. Greystoke, The Legend of Tarzan. There was a Tarzan the Ape Man with Bo Derek. Look it up. And Tarzan and the Lost City in 1998, and then there's been a more recent Tarzan movie. But in general,
George of the Jungle come out around the same time?
George of the Jungle came out same time as Hercules, whenever that was. I think that was in 92.
George of the Jungle was like a parody before the movie.
97, so it came out 2 years before this.
Okay.
Yeah, but George of the Jungle was originally a cartoon, but the live-action version with Brendan Fraser was in 1997. So
I remember enjoying that movie.
Wow, we're not talking about that one though, Desi. We're talking about Tarzan. No matter what you're saying here, you guys are worrying me right now. But there were 3 Disney Tarzan movies. So there was the original 1999 that came out in the theaters. There was a 2002 Tarzan and Jane, and then there was Tarzan 2. I hate when they do that. I think that they've done that. I think Stitch was like that, maybe. But like that they just randomly.
It was a prequel.
Yeah, it's weirdness. So Tarzan 2: The Legend Begins. So it was kind of a prequel. It was like took place during young Tarzan's life. So anyway, but we all know basically the story of Tarzan, where he's he's found in the jungle, and then he's taken. He's taken in by a pack of wolves, and then he dances with this bear. There's a whole bunch of stuff with monkeys. Wait, we're not talking about the same movie. That's a Jungle Book. It was a joke. It was a joke. Come on, people, pay attention.
No. And then Sora shows up, and it teams up with Tarzan to find Donald and Goofy.
Yes, yeah, and King Mickey. Yep. So
those are the worst levels of Kingdom Hearts. Anyway.
But
Agreed.
there are a lot of similarities between this and Jungle Book, obviously, with a little boy who's left and then found, which is referenced later, and we'll talk about that later. So, but in this one, there's one other thing before we get into the main story of it that obviously you guys have looked into or heard about at one point, is the whole Disney conspiracy theory that Tarzan is Anna and Elsa's brother.
I hate it so much. I hate all of these. They're all the worst.
I actually haven't looked into
I
that.
love it.
Well,
Oh,
Tyler, you want to talk about it a
so
little bit
good.
then? And then...
It's like the ship that they were on was the ship that Anna and Elsa's parents were on, and when it sunk, but the two of them survived the ship sinking, whereas Anna and Elsa's parents died or something. Yeah, I don't know. I hate all these conspiracy theories and fans trying to link up every Disney movie. It's just because two boats sink. It's the worst. I hate
Right.
it.
Like Frozen 2 already negated that, so that theory is just gone. So anyway.
Yeah, but I think Chris Buck, when he was interviewed, and all of the fan theory videos that you see about it, will say it could be, but I mean, they're never going to say no, that's not true. They're just, I think, if people want to believe it, they can believe it. But the underlying idea was that in the movie Frozen, we see the ship disappear, but we don't really see it sink. But then it could be that they had actually journeyed further off course, and then they had the baby while they were on board the ship, and they took the baby with them, and then went to the island and built the Swiss Family Robinson treehouse.
And also that ship sank, and that is the ship that the Little Mermaid found at the beginning of her movie. So it all ties together.
Yeah, but wait, there's more. There's more in the idea that where were they going? Well, they were headed to
Rapunzel's wedding.
Rapunzel's wedding,
yeah,
exactly.
right.
Which is why then
Yep.
in the coronation, Rapunzel and Flynn Rider come to the castle, is because they're cousins. Yeah, it's a lot. It's a lot, but it's fun to think about. Maybe, except for Tyler, who thinks it's ridiculous, but it's fun to think about. So once they're on the island and they've built their tree house, which is exactly like the whole story of the Swiss Family Robinson, is that their ship gets, they have to abandon ship. There's a shipwreck. They get to the island. They use pieces of the ship to build this tree house. Like it's so similar to so many other stories. But the idea that Tarzan is found in the treehouse by the gorillas and then brought into their care is it's kind of a fun little story until you see the way they portray it here. And the way they portray it here is that is it Kala or Kayla? I'm probably Kala. So Kala and like her baby runs away and gets killed by Sabor.
So awful.
Jeez.
That was so dark.
And then
I
Sabor
remember that.
journeys on over and kills Tarzan's parents. I mean, it's
And
a
you see
gift.
the dad's dead body laying there? Oh, my
both
God.
of them.
Yeah, this intro
both of
is so depressing.
Yeah, it is depressing. But I mean, there's
They
hope for us.
survived a shipwreck and
Yeah, I was-
made a home in the middle of a jungle and were able to survive all of that.
Yeah, I was going to say there's hope for a second, and then you've got, oh, look, there's the little baby, and isn't he cute? And thank goodness he's not going to die. Yeah, I mean, it's rough. I mean, and it's all done to the soothing sounds of Phil Collins, so it's okay that we're brought into the world this way. But I mean, you see the parents and they're putting together the treehouse and they're taking care of their baby, and then the other ones are like, oh look, we have we have this cute monkey baby, and then in the middle of the night, the monkey baby disappears, and Sabor's like, okay, chow time, kills it, and then goes off and kills the parents, and then however. There is a deleted scene from this, and I don't know if you guys watched that or not. It is available on Disney+. One of my biggest things about Disney+ is always they don't put enough of the extra features on Disney+. And there was only 4 deleted scenes, and that's pretty much it. I don't even think the official trailer is on Disney+. There's a promo clip. But one of the deleted scenes is that when they get to the point with the introducing you to the family, the mom's already dead. And the father is raising the child, and then Sabor comes to the door, at like when it's dark out and tries to get in and gets in and kills the dad. And there's just like you witness the whole death of the dad through like the imagery. This is a G movie, by the way.
A family picture.
It's a G movie. It's not a PG
G?
movie. This is G, yeah.
Even
This
Okay.
movie's
Wow,
so
that's
violent,
terrible.
like with its use of guns and the whole aspect of characters getting
Yeah.
shot, and it's so ridiculous to me the way movies now that just because it contains like a fart is PG because it has mild thematic elements. I think everyone makes fun of the fact that movies back in the day were rated G. Like Secret of Nim was rated G. That would never happen.
Okay.
90s were a different time.
Yeah. Desi, what were you going to say?
I do not think that it deserves a G rating. It is super scary. It is because I haven't watched it basically since the 90s, and I watched it again today, and I did not remember how dark it was. And yeah, it was pretty scary. And when Tarzan he kills the jaguar and he pulls it up and like lays its dead body there on the ground, my kid goes, "Oh, Kitty's napping." And so I was like, "Yes, Kitty is napping. Kitty's taking a nap."
Here's the scene where she finds the parents. Oh, look at them laying there.
Oh my god!
So dark.
Yeah.
Very.
And like, why the need to see the body? We could have just seen the blood marks on the floor and assumed.
Or a shoe. Like one shoe in the
Yeah.
corner, or a hand or something.
Yeah. Yeah. It does seem a little dark. And again, at this point, we are 4 minutes into the movie. So they've established it pretty early. Buckle up, kids. It's going to be dark. Although, if you think about it, Bambi's mom gets shot pretty... Oh, wait a minute. Why do I keep bringing Bambi's mom up?
Stop saying it.
There are some movies, though, and I don't know if you guys are like this, and actually, let's find out which ones they are for you, but I will say there are some Disney movies, and I love Disney movies, and I will watch them all the time, but there are some that I find it hard to watch because I know what's going to happen. Bambi is one, Dumbo is one, and Up is one for me. Yeah, exactly. Emma, what are you? Any others that I'm missing for you?
Yeah, Dumbo is that's a hard one for me to watch. Yeah, and Up, I feel like I can, if I need a good cry, I'll watch Up. That one I'm okay with. But Dumbo, yeah, I still haven't rewatched it to this day because it's just so sad.
Tyler?
It's Big Hero 6 for me. Like, as much as I love that movie and the TV show, I cannot watch that movie because I know I will, like, be utterly depressed. And it's not a Disney movie, but also How to Train Your Dragon 2 and Spider-Verse. Like, these movies, I know there's, like, major character deaths in these movies, and it'll just depress the hell out of me.
Yeah, Desi?
Tadashi deserved better. I always see like this meme that was like, if you could bring one back, who would it be? And it's like a picture of Mufasa and a picture of Bambi's mom and maybe Ellie from Up and Tadashi. I always pick Tadashi because he was young. He was so brilliant. He had so much that he could have brought to the world. I know that this is not a review of Big Hero 6, but I'm going to agree with Tyler on Big Hero 6 being a tearjerker.
Well, but I mean, again, there are some of these movies that you love the rest of it, and so when you get into it and you go, "Oh, this is going to be," I remember why I don't watch this anymore. Yeah,
Coco's another one for me
Inside
too.
Out.
Oh yeah,
I'm a
Those are good
Coco.
ones, too.
Yeah, it is. There's some tough stuff there. But again, that's kind of why we love this. But I feel like Pixar is much worse at that than any of the other, like any of the Disney movies. It's almost like everything in Pixar has that rough moment in it.
Sleek Animation Wolf said Jesse's song from Toy Story. Yes, that one.
Yep.
I try to skip
It's
over
a beautiful
it.
song though.
Yeah, and then also listed Finding Nemo. Finding Nemo is like in the very beginning, just like Coral.
Coral.
Yeah, no.
It's an easy way to make you sympathize with a character on screen and their ambitions and their goals if you immediately... Sorry, Tyler's like writing brain just kicked in here. Like, oh, if we have a character really close to the other characters get killed off, we make you like them and then immediately kill them off. That way you immediately sympathize with this main character and you want them to succeed and be safe and have a nice time or whatever. It's a cheap way of making a likable character, I think.
Yeah, I mean, I could see that, but I do think though like you have those moments in the movie that you're right, they probably draw you into the character, and then maybe you care more about all of it, so you're more prepared to share in their victory when they when they win in the end. But that's one of the things. It's just really rough. And I remember Emma Thompson, when she did Nanny McPhee, was in an interview talking about that almost every children's story starts with an absent parent. And if you start thinking through, like, it's either one or two of the parents that aren't there. Either they died or there's something that happened that they can't be with the kid. And that's actually usually what lets them start their journey, right? So, like, if they don't have the parent there to go, no, that's a bad idea, or if they don't have the parent there to do that for them, they have to go out on that journey. So,
Mulan has both parents, but it's the fear of losing one of her parents that puts her on that path.
Wow, that was deep. So
Tarzan.
Yeah, so back to Tarzan. But I honestly though, I'm not as upset by like, I didn't remember a lot of that, but rewatching it really did upset me about the baby monkey, more so than the parents.
Yes. Yes.
Which but I just, because I think that the parents, I don't know, the baby monkey thing, that just seemed like, it just seemed tough to watch. But it does create the situation where she needs to have a new youngling and he needs to have a mom, and it puts the two of them together for like almost divine reason. And then she takes the Tarzan back to the village, and it's like, oh, hey, I got a new kid, found it in the woods, so I guess it's mine. And Kerchak is like, nah, you're not going to do that.
I
and so
totally understand that, because like, if you just think about, like, if one of your kids passed away and then all of a sudden your spouse shows up and is like, hey, I got a new kid, so let's just move on and forget the fact that we had a kid who passed away. Yeah, I can understand where Kerchak is coming from.
Well, and isn't that a little bit like, and maybe nobody here watches This Is Us, but like,
No.
in this, nobody? Okay, then I won't even use it as a reference. We'll move on.
I need to watch it. I've heard
Yeah.
it's good.
Okay, well, there's a thing, and I feel like it compares to this moment. But at this point now, Tarzan is a fish out of water, right? Because he's not one of them, and he doesn't really know that. But as he's growing up, and you see him growing up, and they do a weird. There's a lot of jumps in his life, and there's the famous one in The Lion King where it's during that during the Hakuna Matata song where he's walking across and he grows up. In this one, they go to bed and then they wake up and now he's older. He's old enough to talk. He's old enough to move around. He's old enough to have the cool hair. All of that stuff is happening, and so now we have a different level of his life. But he's a fish out of water because he's not built like these gorillas. He can't move like they can. They tease him. They taunt him. He's hairless. All this stuff. So now, fish out of water the whole time.
Is Rosie O'Donnell still young Turk's voice?
Yeah, I believe so.
How come she gets to have the young child's voice, but all of the other adult actors don't? They get actual children to play those voices, so I just don't get it. Why?
I think it's because it's probably just because it's cartoony enough that they could pull it off. And a lot of times, women will do the voices of young boys, like Nancy
It
Cartwright.
sounds exactly the same.
Yeah, it's very yeah.
She still sounds like adult Turk.
No, they do some stuff. I think they do some stuff that does sound different. I do love them.
Yeah, there's a little bit of nuance.
As a parent, and maybe Desi, I don't know if you caught this or not, but like they're trying to pull Turk away, and it's like she says 5 more minutes, 3 more minutes,
Yes.
1 more minutes. That's
One more minute.
1 more minute. It's definitely sounded like something that would have happened with my kids, or that I do. Either one. It's one of those things. So now we've gone through that transition, and he's older, and he's being a little bit more mischievous, but really not his fault. I feel like at this point, Turk is his villain.
It's that whole mentality of like, well, I've got to be cool because of like other people I think are cool, and then that gets me in trouble. Which I hate that so much. Any like bully characters in anything are just utterly absurd, and I hate them. But I probably cut out there. But in general, that montage with Son of Man and seeing him grow up, like that song is so good. The end of it with the shot of him swinging through the vines. Like, can I bring up the fact that they use 3D in the movie, but it's not intrusive. Part of the time I would be like, I couldn't tell if it was 3D, which is the way it should be when you're using 3D with 2D animation. Like, it was 3D, but it wasn't like it all had all that watercolor textured paintings that they had in the background. It wasn't like Treasure Planet or Lilo and Stitch, where there was a very obvious cel-shaded kind of black outlines thing in the foreground of the frame. It was used purely for like a lot of camera shots, but it integrated very well. That was the most surprising part of the movie to me.
Yeah. So the first growth spurt, it wasn't really a montage. It just happened, right? Like they woke up and now we have to like assume that. The next one was the Son of Man, like you were talking about, like montage. And so, you know, they do the whole like, hey, look, he's having a good time. He's starting to get the hang of being this, you know, this great kid. But there's this thing where he jumps up into the air, and then all of a sudden, like, they transform him at that point into a man. It feels like there could have been a better transition for that, or am I just making that up?
We always have that. It's the Hakuna Matata thing. Again.
Right.
It's like, how do you show a progression of time? And, like, I'm sure there was probably some test screening where somebody saw them just, like, cut to another part of a scene, and they're like, hang on, what happened to the boy? That's a man now. I don't know that these are the same characters. Like, they probably was like, here's a crossfade to show it's the same person.
Yeah. But, like, the Son of Man song, I mean, just slaps. It's awesome.
It does.
It's, like, right there. It's just so good. And it's so perfect for this, and it makes it pretty cool. Like, Hakuna Matata's fun, but, like, this transition song is really cool. And so I love what they do with it in that, but they use montages a lot. I mean, when they do the whole montage scene of her teaching him how to, like, you know, to be, you know, strangers like me, right? So it's again, they use that a lot during this thing, and then maybe that's the challenge.
It's a music. Oh, sorry.
We'll go Emma, and then we'll go.
No, I was gonna say, you know, I feel like that's done in not that I would call this movie a musical, but I mean it's done in musicals all the time. You know, if you have to condense something down to save time so it fits within, you know, I guess live theater like 2.5 hours or 2 hours. And, you know, if you got to fit something into a 90-minute animated film, then you got to do what you got to do. And, you know, the easiest way to show a huge chunk of passage of time is to do a montage. And I mean, I think it works. You know, it doesn't stand out to me as odd that there's multiple of them.
Well, and the other thing that happens, though, is that you were talking about it being sort of a musical, but not really musical, is that in this, Phil Collins is still singing the songs. Like, you know, you may have, like, that one of them starts it up, but then it goes to Phil Collins, and he's singing the song. And so it really is background music to whatever they're doing, but it's specifically telling the story, as opposed to a showstopper, right? So, like, Be Our Guest is a showstopper. We are stopping in the middle of this to just have a big musical number. And that's what feels more like, you know, more like that. This one, to me, feels more, again, like it's sort of the soundtrack to it, as opposed to it being a musical. And I think it's a pretty solid soundtrack. So,
except for Trash in the Camp, which that is where we jump into musical a little bit, because they hear it, you know, the humans, they hear it in the, from a distance what's going on at the
Right.
camp. So like
So-
that's the one time where they break that rule. And it kind of
I want to stop for a second, though, Emma, because I feel like you love that song, and I feel like
I do!
there's someone on the panel that maybe isn't a huge fan.
I'm sorry. I don't like that song. I don't like this soundtrack in general. Maybe I'm biased. Maybe it's because in the 90s I was huge into Backstreet Boys and NSYNC is on the soundtrack, so therefore I was against it.
Oh no!
But you can't follow up movies like Aladdin and Hercules that came out right before this with Phil Collins. I'm sorry. Phil Collins, as great as he is, none of these songs are as good as, like, A Whole New World.
Good night, everybody.
Or Hakuna Matata.
Yeah, good night.
I'm sorry.
Good night, everybody.
They just aren't.
No, here's the thing. You're talking about two different styles completely.
Two
It's like
worlds.
comparing two worlds, one family. Two
Trust your
different
heart.
composers.
Let fate decide.
Okay, we need to stop. But talk about you're comparing apples to oranges. They're both equally iconic and memorable. They're just two different genres of music. So yes, I can understand why you wouldn't like one over the other, but I think they stand as equals in the Disney canon of music, in my honest opinion.
Okay,
And
tiebreaker?
how often do you
Tiebreaker?
hear a Tarzan
Tiebreaker?
song? in
Tiebreaker?
anything
Tiebreaker?
at the
With
park?
Ain't Happily Ever
wait.
After,
I wasn't
Desi.
expecting to be on camera.
Tiebreaker?
And he just cut to me, and I'm just like miserable.
Tiebreaker?
I hate this song because every other song in the movie is one consistent style or genre, and then in the middle you have the song version of Storybook Circus, which is the one part that is just made for toddlers because they're like, oh, well, there's a lot of dark stuff and Phil Collins is in the movie, but we need a fun scene with the talking animals for the children and a song that's nonsensical that children can memorize.
Again,
So
I
let's
was
put in
3 when
this
it came
song.
out. Of course I liked it.
I know,
Maybe
but
'cause I
we're
was in high
adults
school,
now,
didn't
and this is how we're reviewing the movie from a critical standpoint. I'm just saying, I hate this song. I hate
This
when
song's
movies
terrible.
have
I-
a song
I-
to...
So
Okay,
I don't
wait,
mind
wait.
The Phil
Let's-
Collins songs on their own. I just don't like it as a Disney movie soundtrack. But I would prefer any of the Phil Collins songs to this Trash in the Camp song.
Well, I mean, let's be honest, this is a Phil Collins song, but
But Toy Story is another one where it's Randy Newman the whole time. I love that soundtrack.
so
And
just pulling up the
feels like it
lyrics
fits.
for this song, zabby dop
No.
dooby doo zappa doo dop zwee bop
And
zwee
this is the
dop
song
zee doo
on all the Disney Mania soundtracks.
zwee
And
dop.
if you have
Zee-doo.
Tarzan pop up in like a parade or one of those like Disney park shows where it's like, let's cram together 8 Disney properties to make a show, this is the song they use because this is
They
the
can't
one
afford to pay for
children know.
Phil Collins' voice in the parks.
Who
no, they
here
used,
watched the movie with their kids for this review?
I did.
Did your
Yeah, I
kids
watched it.
be engaged with that song over all the other ones, or are they just as
No,
engaged
they
throughout the
didn't,
rest of the
actually.
movie?
They were more engaged with the kitty taking a nap than they were with this song.
This is my guess, and I could be wrong because I do not really know Desi's kids, but this is my guess of an impression of how that went.
No, not at all. Why would they have a
work-
tablet and be watching TV?
Have you met kids?
When I worked at Disney Store, I asked a kid once, what's your favorite part of Star Wars? And he said, the part where Anakin gets burned in the volcano. And the dad said, no. And I'm like, no, I think he knows exactly what part of the movie he likes.
What he
Kids like...
what he meant was the part where the younglings are murdered. That's what he meant.
Same thing.
Yeah, exactly. But here,
just-
let me again interject that I love the music, and part of the problem is that that I probably differ from the two on the bottom here is that I like Phil Collins, like Genesis, Phil Collins. I'm a fan, and like
I also like Phil Collins,
So-
just not for this
I think
movie.
it's all right.
Oh, I think that the music is a huge part of it. I think it's very important. And I like the fact that it's a slight departure and not exactly the same cookie cutter of all the rest of them, because you've got to have a break. Now, sometimes that break is a failure, Treasure Planet, and it doesn't really work out the way that you want it to. Now, with the nostalgia side, you know that I'm right. But I would say that with most of these, like this movie, it had a different vibe from all the rest. It was a very cool movie. To me, anyway, it just had a different vibe to it, and I like the fact that there weren't those things. But I will say, I don't love Trash in the Camp. Sorry, I that's probably my least favorite on here. And it doesn't have real lyrics, but I do appreciate the fact that as Phil Collins was a drummer, this was probably the one that he wanted to do the most, I would think, because it's just about basically Stomp in the Jungle is what this is. It's just percussion ensemble, and it's kind of crazy. But anyway, I'm sorry.
I will say I still like the song, but it doesn't fit the way they have the music in the rest of the film. It doesn't fit the storytelling. I will say that. So
Yeah.
I like the song, but it should have been cut probably.
They could have cut this
doesn't
song
work.
from the movie, and it would have been better for it.
Wow.
Like
wow.
the troll song from Frozen 2 or Frozen.
Yep.
Yeah, no, I don't disagree with you there either. I think that's on par. But I think they're always looking for that next Be Our Guest, that next Under the Sea. And then, like, for this,
This doesn't even deserve to be in the same.
it doesn't
breath
add
as-
anything to the movie, I don't think either. But the one thing that it does do, well, actually, there are two things it does. One is it gives me vibes from the Jungle Cruise more than anything else in this, because of like the apes in the camp, and my Jeep, they got it to turn over, that whole bit. But also it shows us that they bring some really dumb stuff when they go on a jungle adventure, including the grandfather clock.
Yeah,
What?
doesn't make sense.
Yeah, I mean, some of it I get. Like the Victrola, I get. Like, oh, they wanted some entertainment. But like the grandfather clock,
The bicycle.
the bicycle to get through the
Beauty and the
jungle.
Beast Easter egg.
Yeah, could have been.
We needed a scene with a bunch of things that are the opposite of a jungle. What's the weird? What's the thing that a ape would not know? Clock? Sure, let's draw that. They'll break it. It'll be funny for the toddlers watching the movie.
So, where is that happening?
Sorry, it's brought somebody. So there's somebody on a motorcycle that
I got you.
has the zoomies going up and down Broad Street.
That sounds about right. So one thing that is about this movie is that it's kind of broken up into, like most movies, Act 1, Act 2, Act 3. But the interesting thing to me was when they're ending Act 1, it kind of ends on Tarzan killing Sabor. Like that's his moment where he's actually kind of finally become like one of them. And then he's all they.
He killed him? I thought he sang him a lullaby and put him to sleep. Kitty took a nap.
Is that what you told the kids?
That's they saw the Sabor and said, "Oh, Kitty's taking a nap."
Yeah.
And I said, "Yes."
And you
yes,
said,
he
"Yeah, a
is."
dirt nap." No. So, and then
Usually in movies, there's like a part where an outside force interrupts like the average day for the main character, or at least in like that hero's journey kind of thing. Like for Luke, it's when like the Empire shows up and kills his aunt and uncle, and it's like, okay, well, my usual day has been completely interrupted. Oh no, he finds C-3PO and R2-D2, but still, like, there's an outside force that, like, if it wasn't for them showing up and making shotgun blast sound effects, he might have actually gotten told by Kerchak that he like, hey, good job. You know what? Maybe you are my son. But instead, this other thing happens that interrupts his life and completely changes what happens with the rest of the movie. You're muted.
That's what I was going to kind of get at, is that at that moment when you've resolved the problem of the villain, and honestly, you've kind of resolved two villains, because at that point, Turk is on Team Tarzan. It's like, yeah, he's my best friend. He's always been my best friend. So there you go. He's loved by his community, and then he's slayed the dragon, and then within that moment, there's the gunshot that, okay, now here's Act 2. Here's the next thing. Here's the new villain. But it was interesting that they resolved the first villain, and within a minute, introduce you to the next. Desi, thoughts?
I feel like they should have introduced Jane a little bit sooner. I don't know. Maybe they spent too much time on Tarzan when he's younger. I mean, you go from Tarzan's a baby, and then all of a sudden he's a little boy, and then we've got to spend some time with him as a little boy, and then now he's an adult. Like, why not just go straight into he's an adult? Kind of like Simba.
By the way,
why the need to stop and pause for the little kid section?
But because it's a kids movie. But real quick fit check. Okay, there's it. Okay,
What?
there we go. Okay.
I should have worn my blue bow tie.
Probably, yeah. So at this point,
You
he
wore
hears the
better, I'll
gun.
be
He
honest.
hears the gunshot. He goes to investigate, and they find that there are people, strangers like me, if you will, that he comes across in the woods, or in the jungle, not the woods. When he comes across them, and it's Clayton, who's the stereotypical villain guy. Like, we know he's a villain. You don't need to tell us twice. He's got the gun. And then you've got Professor Porter and Jane. So they all move in, and they're there to find gorillas. They're basically there to do the gorillas in the mist situation, right? So they're there on like this big trip to find gorillas, but apparently there's a ticking grandfather clock on how much time they have to stay there because the ship's coming back. So,
Can I ask a question?
please, all questions at the end. Thank you.
So Clayton was there to hunt and kill some gorillas and kidnap them potentially. But Jane says, I hired you to be protection. So what were they there to do? To draw some pictures of gorillas? And that's it? Was that what Jane and her dad were there for?
My understanding is that they hired him as a
Research.
guide to bring them into the jungle so that they could research the gorillas.
Yes.
Like a Jane Goodall sort of a situation.
Okay, so they just wanted to show up and look at a
Yeah.
gorilla.
They did not
For
know
a couple
that Clayton had ulterior motives.
Yes.
Right. Even though
They
looking
couldn't figure that out by just, looking at him.
Right.
That he's horrible. Yeah. So it's really, this is the point where now he's seeing, there are people like me, and I get that, I'm curious and I want to know more about them. So he's trying to watch them from a distance, but of course Jane gets herself into trouble, and he's got to jump in and save her from the evil monkeys.
How fantastic is he at
From the
learning
mandrills?
English, by the way?
Yeah,
that
from the
was
mandrills.
incredible. Because I've been trying to teach my kids how to speak English for 2 years now, and they don't speak it nearly as well as Tarzan does.
Well,
That was great how well she was able to teach him so quickly.
but the difference is what you have to do is they have to start knowing ape, and then if they know ape first, it's a good base to figure out everything else. It's science. You wouldn't understand. But so when I get what you're saying, he does this perfect mimicking, which I don't think I've seen this in any other telling of this story. Is him, it's usually a lot of series of grunts and trying to figure out, who's who and
And
all
how
that.
does he know his name is Tarzan right off the bat if he only speaks gorilla? He's like, Tarzan.
Because he was taught that by his village. He was taught that he is Tarzan. So,
but they would
But
call
in
him Tarzan
English?
in ape. Yeah.
Yeah,
Right.
they would call him. They wouldn't call him Tarzan.
you're right. You're right. You're right. You're right. No, you're absolutely right. That's true. That's true. That's true.
At one
So-
point during this movie, I turned to Thomas and I'm like, can you imagine Glenn Close in a recording studio going, ooh, ooh, ooh. It's just, the voices are so good, and the fact that those voices are doing those sounds is just very funny to me.
Yeah. Okay.
That's all.
Well, I mean, if you think about it, that's a lot of voice acting, right? I mean, I doubt it was really natural for Owen Wilson to go ka-chow. Maybe
Everyone does made up sounds.
exactly. So, do we want to talk about how close and personal Tarzan gets with Jane, or do we just shoot past that?
I kind of thought that would be
was
the
a little
whole
cringy
review.
when I watched that again.
I'm sorry.
Not gonna lie.
Well, okay, all right. This is a safe space, Emma. We will not go back to that. But what were you going to say, Tyler?
Nope. Take it up with me. I had the complete opposite response to Emma's, and
Okay.
never mind.
It's fine. But you were talking earlier about the animation with the, and I'm trying to find it, with like the 3D generated. But like some of the POV stuff I thought was pretty amazing, especially during the chase through the jungle with Jane. Because I feel like a lot of this, and I think we've heard about that, is based on like extreme sports and such. So when he's going through the jungle, at one point you actually see him doing like a POV thing where you get to like, this is what it's like for him to go through, which I think is kind of cool.
Well, we're Disney, and we know what a roller coaster looks like, so we need a scene
He's
where
a
it
soul
looks like a
surfer.
roller coaster. Then we have an excuse for putting a ride in the theme park, and then we won't.
Why aren't there more roller coasters then? Just putting that out there. Him
doing that like foot thing. I remember this Disney Channel commercial where they were talking about Tarzan and how it was like a rollerblading thing. So Tarzan is a soul surfer, bringing it back to Brink.
Oh boy. And he's
And you're on
muted.
mute, Rob.
You gotta stop muting yourself.
Here's why I do it. Because every now and then we'll get comments about I hear clicking. So I'm trying not to be clicking. So that's why I will mute myself while I'm doing stuff. So if you wondered the mystery of it, it's not just because I love the abuse, Tyler. But
I guess we should say something about just like the connection between Tarzan and Jane. I thought it was I see a lot of straight relationships in Disney movies, and I'm like, oh my god, this is such a flimsy pretext for why did you enlarge me and then put me back so quick?
no, I'm just kidding. I'm just joking. I'm joking.
Like Aladdin sees a girl and goes, whoa! And I'm like, I hate this. But just the sort of connection that they have where he sees another human for the first time and he puts their hands together and he's like, oh my god, it's another thing like me. This is insane. And more to the point, there are other people. And this one is actually pretty nice to me. And she's actually being kind and teaching me things, and I'm teaching her things. Through the montage, we kind of get an idea of the time that they spend together. And I didn't end up hating it, as I normally do when I see characters like this on screen sometimes, or most of the time in Disney movies. And yeah, I didn't think it was terrible. And I actually, I didn't know this was Minnie Driver. And she is so good in this movie. Like, the expression and the mannerisms that she puts just in her voice acting, especially in, that scene in the scene where she's explaining how she met Tarzan, that feels like a real thing. I read on Wikipedia that this scene where she's talking about how she met Tarzan to Clayton and her dad, that whole piece of audio was improvised. And it's one continuous animation take. And it took them 7 weeks just to animate or something like that.
Wow.
But I like it. I really like Jane in this movie. Her character design is great. The voice acting is amazing.
That's why I think they should have brought her in earlier.
well, there is a movie called Tarzan and Jane. Have you watched it?
No.
You had the
a
opportunity.
movie.
Why didn't you watch it?
It's 4 episodes of a TV show strung together.
I'm just saying, it's fine. I agree. I look at this and I go, why wasn't there more merchandising for Jane? Because Jane is a very strong woman. She's, her overall look is amazing for the character. I think that she's very interesting. I feel like there should have been more with Jane, but maybe it's just because this wasn't. I don't know. It didn't hit the same way that Little Mermaid and Aladdin and some of those did. Mm-hmm. So I did have that in my notes about her being there wasn't a lot of marketing, because you can't really say she's a princess, because even if she did marry the king of the jungle, that would kind of make her the queen of the jungle and not a princess. And so
it's the kind of flimsy excuse they would use, though.
Right, like Pocahontas.
Yeah.
Like, she's the chief's daughter. That's kind of a princess. We'll run with that. Let's do that. But I mean, there are a lot of strong female characters that are not princesses. I mean, like
You wear a
Tinkerbell
dress,
and...
you've got an animal sidekick, you're a princess.
You're a princess.
Is he the animal sidekick in this case, Desi?
I was quoting Maui.
Oh, gotcha. Sorry. So anyway, I do want to say at this point, if you haven't already, please give us a thumbs up. If you haven't subscribed already, please subscribe. And if you haven't seen this show before, you don't know, it's time for trivia.
I forgot about this.
Here we go.
So I'm so glad you guys love it so much. Me too. I do too. Thank you so much. The support is
I
overwhelming.
forget to memorize things.
Well, I mean,
This is the section of the show where Rob tortures us.
It's a little different than most, right? It's a little different because it's like, how many plants were in the jungle and how many gorillas did you see and all that. No, we're not doing that. I want to ask you though, if you guys know, and I feel like this is an easy question. This is a softball from the beginning, because Phil Collins did the music to this. What's the other movie that he did the music to? What's the other Disney animated feature he did the movie to?
Brother Bear.
Oh, exactly.
Yeah, which again is very similar in the way that it's not really like, animals singing. It's those things are telling the story of, the singing is telling the story. And even in that one, like Coda will start to sing and then it becomes Phil Collins. So I think at that point they were following that same pattern between Tarzan and then and Brother Bear. But last week I asked, what's that?
I've never seen Brother Bear.
Me neither.
Oh, you haven't?
What is wrong with
It's
you people?
very cute.
I was supposed to go see it in college, and then my boyfriend at the time changed his mind last minute, and we saw Texas Chainsaw Massacre.
Wow.
Those are two very opposite things.
Well, at least you didn't end up marrying him. That's at least that happened.
Thank God.
Yeah. So, in Texas Chainsaw Massacre, Desi, what was the name? No. What is the color of the blanket covering baby Tarzan when Kala?
Yeah, it's blue.
Boom, nailed it. Who has the first word in the movie?
Me.
The carjack? What's his name?
Kerchak.
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 No.
Turk?
Is it Kala?
Is it? It is Turk. Way to guess. There's only like 5 main characters that have voices in this, so it was pretty. You were going to get it at some point. We knew Jane and Professor Porter weren't in there yet. We knew that that Clayton hadn't showed up yet. Yeah, it was Turk. It was 8 minutes and 20 seconds into the movie before there's actually a word spoken by a character.
Wow.
Yeah. Speaking of Professor Porter, what is his full name?
Archimedes Q Porter?
Archimedes, yeah.
Yes, correct. Like, I
What
love
does
the
the
way
Q stand for?
Quincy.
I don't know.
I don't know. But he introduces himself as Archimedes Q Porter. But when he says it, it sounds a lot like Merlin. And then I'm like seeing the mustache. He's like, when Merlin goes Archimedes, it sounded very similar to me on that one. When they're getting up onto the ship, they say you're going to meet scientists, authors, and royalty, and then they say everyone's going to meet you, going to want to meet you, and who do they say are the 3 people who are going to want to meet?
The Queen.
Tarzan.
Something Queen Victoria.
Right.
I don't know the other two.
But they list scientist, author, and royalty, and then they list the 3 names.
I genuinely don't remember.
Darwin.
Oh, yeah.
That makes sense.
And Kipling, which the gentleman who wrote the Jungle Book. So, yep.
Okay.
Yeah, and so finally to wrap this all up, because you guys are having so much fun, I know, but we're just going to do one more, is what is the name of the ship?
Dang it, knew I should have
Minnow.
looked at that.
Desi.
I got nothing.
Arrow.
Yes, Rob?
Arrow.
I was close.
Yeah, you were. You were
minnow
so
is-
close. Gilligan's
Yeah,
Island.
it's Gilligan's Island, yeah.
Yes. Yeah. If not for the courage of the fearless crew, the minnow would be lost. The minnow would be lost, Tyler. So now one of the things that I didn't show is, and there are a lot of Easter eggs, but the one that is in your face,
Yeah. They show it
Did they
twice.
break her?
right? Yeah, it
times.
couldn't be more in your face. Although I was going to ask how many cups were on the table, but I decided to skip that one.
Thank you.
Yeah, no problem. Well, I mean, since I just showed it to you, how many were there? I'm just kidding. It's 4. So when they go through this, and there was a lot of other Easter eggs that have people like believing that whole Disney conspiracy, because apparently like there's a place where you see pearls and they look like the ones that that Gus had in Cinderella, and there's a lot of that kind of stuff. So then there was a lot of hidden Mickeys that as I'm looking through, I'm like, no, I don't think so. I think they're accidental Mickeys. This one, though, not only is this one that is prominent here, but it's also prominent in the now closed Tarzan treehouse in Disneyland, which was an actual kind of a neat, kind of a neat throwback, and we'll talk about that in a second. So once she learns him some English, as Desi was saying how great she is at teaching English, then he decides that he wants to kind of go back with them, and because he wants Jane to stay there, she's like, nah, I'm not doing that, and he's like, okay, I want to go back with them. And then
It's very Pocahontas.
right, they're about to leave, and then Clayton's like, you know what, brother, if only she had gotten to see gorillas, maybe she'd stay. And we're like, no, Tarzan, don't do it. And then he takes him back to his village. And so the neat thing to me about this, though, is that he was a fish out of water with his family, like growing up, because he was not an ape, and now he's kind of a fish out of water here because he doesn't understand the ways of man. So it's like 2 worlds, 1 family, but he doesn't really fit into either one, right? So he's part of both, but he doesn't really fit into either. So I think that's an interesting journey for him that we don't usually see.
The real guy that Mowgli was based off of never fully integrated with man.
Same with the Tim Allen in Jungle to Jungle. The kid from that. Same story. Man, there are a lot of jungle little kid growing up from the wrong side of tracks kind of movies, aren't there? So they once this all happens, and Kerchak's like, you've betrayed the family, and we don't know that, we see Clayton making map notes, and it's like, I'm sure he's up to something good. And now it's like, by the way, let me take you. You basically have been all over this island for your entire life, but you've never seen the huge tree house. Let me go ahead and take you to that tree house. How does he never see that?
Maybe she purposely tries to hide that from him.
Is that a thing you would do with your kids?
Anytime he well, like I try to make sure my kids don't want to go run out into the road, so I purposely don't let them go in that direction.
Okay.
So maybe she's just purposely, anytime he starts going off in that direction, oh no, Tarzan, come here, let's go look at this other thing instead.
Yeah.
I always got the feeling that they were like, they had a specific area they lived in, and that's all the
That's
only
where the
place
gorilla
they've been.
nests were.
Like, yeah. He said it. Clayton refers to it as like this. Look over here, a nest.
Yeah. I say that all the time when I'm pointing at the wall about the temperature. No. Okay. So so now we're like, okay, he's been brought back. He's a little bit angry at his mom, but he's like, okay, I get it. And so he dresses up in his dad's suit, which fits perfectly. Now, here's the question. Does Dad have more than one suit that he brought to the island, or did he take it off of his dad's dead body? Thoughts?
I was
His dad did not look like he was wearing a suit.
Okay. Cool.
Did they have
When
like
you
didn't
see
they
the dead
not-
body laying there.
But then didn't they not have any of their like clothing or anything with them when they came off the ship? Because it's all sunk, right? Like, so wouldn't they, like, how did he get the suit?
Washed
Did
ashore?
the mom do anything with the bodies? Because they were dead or over there. And then
doubt
she
it.
took baby Tarzan. So did Tarzan go in and just see two skeletons in the corner? As dark as that would be. Or did Kala be like, no, these are human bodies? Dinner? I don't know. Like
Kala be like. Yeah. Kala be
I
like
think
that
somebody ate
sometimes.
the parents.
So he goes and he gets his civvies on, and then he decides to go and join the strangers like me, and they get on the boat and they go back to the ship, and it's a trap. Who saw that coming?
There's a drop!
Admiral
yeah.
Akbar.
well, we've seen movies before. so these are the things that always happen.
Yeah. So
But if you've never had any human interaction before, then you don't see it coming.
do you think it was a cop-out that the way they were saved is Tantor finally decides he knows how to swim? Is that a cop-out?
Yeah, a little bit.
Can I just say,
No.
Tantor is really a Jewish stereotype? I'm Jewish, and as I'm watching Wayne Knight be like, oh, I don't want to go in the water because of all of the bacteria. I'm like, oh my god, this is like... And the mom being like, no, there's no piranhas in the water. Quiet, I'm talking to my friends. I'm like, this is just a bunch of Jewish characters.
Were you offended?
I'm never offended by Jewish jokes, as long as they're done correctly.
Okay.
I love a good Jewish joke.
So was this
I just thought it was such a weird choice because Turk is like, "Hey, yo, I'm walking here," and I'm like, "Why does she have a New York accent?" Other than that's just like the trope of the sidekick animal character. Like I think Enchanted really played that up with Pips, but that was the joke of Pips is that they go to New York and he can't. Anyways, that's all.
Do we love the fact that somehow, including the fact that Tantor has found his courage, he has swum for the first time ever, but in the ocean out to a ship. But before he actually gets on the ship, he uses his periscope trunk to look through
Yeah,
That
no.
scene.
and see the Jungle Cruise ship.
genuinely- I laughed so hard at that scene. Like, there's the part where he's like, let's go, they run, and then he just flies off of a cliff. Like, if anyone's seen the meme of that guy on the scooter just driving off the edge of, like, a pier into the water, that's what that reminded me of. And I was losing my mind over that. And then just when I regained my composure, periscope eyeball trunk, and Thomas was
what were
like,
you-
what is that?
What were you going to say, Desi?
I want to know how he swims, and then all of a sudden from the inside they see the boat rock, and then you pan back to the outside and you see him climbing over the side. How did he get from the water all the way to the top of that boat?
Right, that's my question. How did he climb?
How did that happen? He's an elephant. He has no way of gripping, and even if he did, there was nothing to grip onto. It's not like he's got like sticky.
Right, it's not like it's Mission Impossible. Like,
So you're saying, I want to know, can you show
can
me?
you show me?
Is that what you're asking right now? Is that accurate?
Yes, please.
Okay. Well, I mean, it's obvious if you look at this picture.
Oh, there's like a chain?
Yeah. So
There's like
here,
the anchor,
yeah.
maybe?
yeah, he just walked up the anchor. That's all. He just walked up the anchor.
Casually.
Yeah, exactly. He just walked up the anchor. That's it. Or Turk pulled them both up.
But
That's just as plausible.
Well-
Yeah, that's
Did,
against the laws of physics somehow.
So maybe they like pulled the anchor and the ship tilted, and then they just like climbed. No,
Pull it down with the trunk, backflip. Yeah. But the good news is that they couldn't figure out either. That's why we see it from the outside. That's actually that's the truth. It's actual. Everything's satisfactual. They do it from the outside, and you don't really ever get to see it. So,
Rob's got 300 more of those, by the way.
I do. They're locked and loaded, and yeah. So, so for the rest of this, they have the very plausible escape, and then Tarzan gets back into his jungle outfit, and here's the weird thing. Here's the weird thing. He takes off his clothes, and he's got his Superman outfit underneath, which is the loincloth. Did he leave the loincloth on the whole time?
Yeah.
Probably.
Okay, cool.
They didn't. His dad didn't have any like underwear.
You don't know that. You don't know
Yes,
that.
I do.
Okay. You've got a weird hobby then. So they go back into the jungle, they save the apes, and then they kill Clayton. Wow. But first
So
of all,
scary.
first of all,
That was dark.
it is so similar to the Gaston and Beast fight showdown to a T. The angry mob versus like all the henchmen, the animated objects fighting back, the gorillas, the whole deal, and then the treetop fight versus the castle top fight. It is so similar to the whole thing. Like, Emma, were you watching this, and at any point did you go, "Oh yeah, that's Beauty and the Beast"?
I mean, a little. I get I could see the similarities. I mean, it kind of makes sense. They were animated and they came out in the theaters at a similar time. So, I mean, that makes sense to me. But the thing that it reminded me of was the Haunted Mansion a little bit, because when he dies at the end, you can see his shadow, and it kind of reminded me of the stretching room a little bit.
Terrible.
If you know what I mean.
Right. Well, I mean, you know, he's cutting the wire, the thing, and he's like, Clayton, no. It's coming around his neck. He's like, no. And he just cuts them all and falls. And then for that brief second, you see the knife hit at the ground, or the sword hit the ground, the thing tighten, and then that shadow, right like that. Because it's a G-rated movie, they could only show you his hanging dead shadow. That's so graphic. That's so freaking graphic. I mean, it's
You almost miss it if you're not looking at that tree, though.
Yeah.
But when you
Right.
see it, like, it is so prominent, and oh my god. Also, Tarzan, like, wrapped him up in the vines, and then this happened, and he's like, Clayton, no, the thing I did to you. It's so weird.
But he's trying to stop him from killing himself. I mean, we got to give him at least a little props for that, right?
So it's so weird. So weird when, like, evil villain goes to kill hero, and then hero's like, well, I'm gonna try and kill you back in this fight scene, and then villain kills themselves, and hero's like, I'll save you, and I'm like, what?
Yeah. All right, so let me ask you this, Tyler, because you were talking about this beforehand. During that whole fight, Kerchak is shot. You said you didn't remember that happening?
I do not remember that happening as a kid. I remember Clayton, like, Clayton's fate, his flayton. That was, no, I can't do it as well as Rob. I genuinely don't remember how this movie ended, and I do not remember Kerchak getting killed. I don't know what happened.
We're back.
Yeah, I just, we're back. A dinosaur story. I just
Sir?
don't remember that scene ever happening.
Stay in your lane. It's fine. We're all fine. All right, so before we go and do like a wrap up, because obviously the whole thing ends happily ever after with Jane getting a new fit with the outfit that I was showing earlier. Interesting, we never see meet and greets with her wearing that. Why is that?
We do see meet and greets with Tarzan wearing that.
True.
Not me, though I'd love to. I'm gonna leave now. Listen, I went an hour and 10 minutes without talking about how beautiful Tarzan is and
Okay.
how well animated he is. Okay.
We could talk about that in the post show.
Wait, we have one
Now,
of those?
graphics time will do a tier list.
No, there's no post show. So I do think though it to me, and I don't think I'm being biased here. It is the most uncomfortable meet and greet I've ever seen.
Not for me.
Yeah.
Hi. Tyler's talking.
I had I forget the term how you use it. I had a friend who knew on the Disney Cruise Line Captain America and Jack Sparrow, and they told me that the amount of people who try to grab their butt and try to slip them their hotel or cabin numbers is insane. And so the amount of people who like, I'll tell you this: the weirder thing is when you have Mowgli and it's a grown adult in like a flat bodysuit. That is bizarre. So I don't know what's more bizarre, having an actual person who is buff and handsome like Tarzan in just a loincloth greeting guest. They had like a little vine to him, but let's face it, that's not helping anything.
No.
And then he like talks as though Tarzan talks, where he's like, my speech kind of broken, and it's weird.
I
think
say one
meet and
thing
greets are
about the
weird
way
in
Tarzan
general.
talks? This is his first time hearing anybody speak words, and all of them have British accents. Tarzan, somehow, even though he hears everybody speaking in a British accent, and this is the first time he's ever heard anyone speak, he has an American accent. Why?
Wait.
Yeah.
Wait.
That doesn't make any sense.
Wait. Who are you talking about?
Tarzan.
This guy?
Oh.
Oh my.
I'm telling you.
Does he? Oh my. Oh my god.
Okie doke.
This is what this has turned into.
Yeah. So,
Can I make a complaint about the evil pirate guys on the ship?
oh my gosh! Please.
It's like, oh, well, if you're a main character, you are lean and you are attractive and you have no visual flaws on your face. But the minute we see these evil villain characters, they're all like chubby or fat with like their shirts open, and they're like, like they
Clayton's
made
not.
them look like gross, ghastly villains. Yeah, Clayton's not, because he's like the who's the guy from Frozen? Hans. He's like the Hans. We're supposed to. I guess we're supposed to think he's all right, and then he's not.
Yeah.
I don't think we ever think he's all right.
I don't know that I agree. I mean, these two gentlemen don't seem like that. They seem like they're well groomed, except for one dude not having an eyeball, and that kind of a thing. I don't know. Also, they're pirates, kind of. So
Yeah, it gave me Pirates of the Caribbean vibes a little bit. Those villains.
yeah. So there's that. So they save the day. Jane's there. She gets to go and live out her basically Desi's dream in the jungle with Tarzan. And but the way that it ends though, with the the final song and them going through the jungle and then getting to the end and then that Tarzan logo dropping is very similar to like the Circle of Life and that whole thud at the end. And to me, that was a great way to end that movie. It was very uplifting. It was very like, kind of that Spider-Man, Superman moment at the end where everything's going to be all right and everything's great, and then just boom, Tarzan.
It was funny because at the end of the movie, when that happened, my son goes, "All done," which I don't think I've ever heard him say that at the end of a movie before. So it was like a stamp, like this movie is for sure done. I just thought it was funny that happened, and then my son just goes, "All done."
That's so cute.
I'm gonna say that from now on when a movie finishes. All done.
Yeah, and we see basically everything, we get the final like Tarzan call, and then just like, doom, like I mean, it's just
All done.
yeah, it's just all done. It's perfect.
It's a happy ending, but it probably isn't for Jane
Jane.
and her dad's family and friends, who, according to them when they left the boat, was tell them you never found us. People get lost in the jungle every day, and it's like, so they all think you're dead.
What?
And like you
Right.
probably have a house and money in a bank somewhere, and all of your close and important possessions. Like, I'm sure like the next day Jane would be like, oh, I wish I brought a decent pair of like shoes with me, and
So
the dad's like, I have
guessing
no
Mrs.
underwear.
Porter is no longer with us. Like, did she die previously, or have they just decided, you know what?
It's a good
We
way
don't
to
need your
evade paying
mom.
taxes.
By the
Just
way,
leave her.
there was one random line that I meant to talk about earlier where that for some reason I always remember it, and I don't know why. When she's trying to tell the story about the monkeys, and it's like when she first like comes back and meets back up with Porter and Clayton, and she's like, and she's very fast, and she's talking, and she's like, and Daddy, they took my boot. And it's just like you were talking about Minnie Driver and her delivery. That was perfect, because it's just as he's panic, and I just can't, and Daddy, they took my boot, and then she puts her foot out, and it's like, yes, that's kind of awesome. One thing I found interesting about the credits, and so here's where the trivia about the credits comes in. So I hope you guys study the credits. No, I'm just kidding.
No.
Pass.
No, I turned it off because I went, all
We turned
done.
it off.
Nice. So, is it in this movie, the credits, when they roll, a lot of times in a movie, the credits will roll cast, and then you get to see a little bit of everything else. I remember there being a little bit of a time in Disney, and maybe they still do this, I don't know, where instead the first credits are character-driven. It's not just about the cast. So if you look at this, like it says, Jane, supervising animator, voice, Minnie Driver, animators, and then Kala, supervising editor, voice, Glenn Close. I love this. It's almost saying, like, it's not just Glenn Close that made this character come to life. It's this entire group of people that made it come to life. And I think that's the way they should be represented here, especially with the new, like, rumor that we may be seeing a return to 2D animation. That is one of the things that makes me feel like, yes, you need to credit these people because they're craftsmen, and I think that's
Right.
amazing. So in Sketchbook, which is a new series that just dropped on Disney Plus that we may do a review of sometime, I don't know, but there is a hinting that there might be a return to 2D animation. This being one, I think, a great example of 2D meets, as you talked about earlier, Tyler, 3D. I mean, it could be a great way to mix those media together again.
This though was
We'll go to Emma first, and then to Tyler.
Oh, I was gonna say I agree, and I want to point out the I don't know if you guys have seen any of the extras that were included in the Little Mermaid film, but the fact that they had another actor separate from Jodie Benson come in to do all of the physical character work so they could have inspiration to animate Ariel as well. Like that, there are so many people that go into creating a character together when it comes to animation, not just the voice actor. Yes, that is a huge important part, and that is the thing that stands out in the most in the film, but we can't forget the rest of those people as well, that it's a huge team. And maybe nowadays with computer animation, maybe there's just so many people that it's kind of hard to organize all of that, but I think it would be a nice nod to do that if they can with the 2D animations that is allegedly coming.
Allegedly. Couple things in parks after this is obviously Tarzan existed in the Great Movie Ride, like we talked about before, which wasn't really related to this movie in any way, shape, or form. But they made the Tarzan Rocks show, which I know, Tyler, you've watched that show for, I think, a Ride Rehab Watches. Here's a shot from that. It was basically like basically a BMX. I'll leave it up for another second, Desi. It was a BMX, BMX like and rollerblades and the whole deal show.
Soul skating?
No.
Good night,
No.
everybody.
It was
but
like a concert, and then halfway through, Tarzan
Yeah.
shows up.
So they had
And
singers.
then it becomes a...
Yeah, they had singers and a live rock band, and they were doing all the music, which I thought was cool because it was, in line with what they were doing. It was in theater in the wild. It replaced the Jungle Book movie or show that was there when the park first opened, but it was before they enclosed the theater and brought the Nemo musical to life. So I loved this show. I thought it was really fun. It had a lot of high energy. They came out into the audience, the BMX bikes and the rollerbladers and the singers and the whole deal. I thought it was really neat. So that was one thing. And then the other thing is that in Disneyland, they took the treehouse that existed for the Swiss Family Robinson, because we talked about this in the beginning, is how similar they are, and they converted it to Tarzan's treehouse, and I think they did an excellent job, because I think that there's a nostalgia for going to the one in Florida, but you do it once and you're like, maybe I haven't done it in 10 years, I'll do it again. I don't think it's a go every time type of thing. At least it isn't for me. But with the Tarzan's Treehouse, it is a little bit more exciting because it is Tarzan. But they've closed it now. They've said it would probably be rethemed. We're hearing maybe Encanto, which would be interesting. But I don't think anything could have fit as a better overlay for the Swiss Family Robinson Treehouse than the Tarzan Treehouse. And you guys never got to do it? Nobody here?
No,
I've never
I
been
did
to
it,
Tarzan
actually.
one.
Yeah.
Okay, so Emma, you did?
Yeah, I mean, I've only been to Disneyland twice, so it was a long time ago. But yeah, I remember it was really fun, and the background loop for it is fun too. Yeah, it was an exciting walkthrough, and it is the perfect and honestly the only overlay I could think for the Swiss Family Robinson. I don't think
Right.
Encanto
Are
makes
there
sense
any
there.
dead bodies on the ground?
No. Yeah. As you get to the very end,
if
you
we
can
want to be
see
movie accurate.
Clayton's body's just swinging at the end. That's great. No, I think it was pretty well done, and I'm glad they put it together, and I'm sad to see it go, but if they can do something better, that's great, and if not, bring it back. So, and then there's also, usually when you go to Disney events, there's always a lot of cosplay, if you go to D23 or things like that, or even like for park like, Disney, like Oogie Boogie, things like that, people dress up. There's a lot of cosplay for that happens for Tarzan, and it's a lot of like maybe reverse gender Tarzan Jane situation, or just people coming as Tarzan and Jane, or women just dressed up as Jane. I think it's neat that there's a legacy here that continues on.
I did Dapper Day one year as Tarzan's mom. So, yeah. So Tarzan's mom has like a red dress with like a bow, and Tarzan, like as a baby, has like a yellow and blue outfit on. So when I was a new mom and I had a baby for Dapper Day, I went in the red dress that Tarzan's mom had and dressed my son in yellow and blue like baby Tarzan.
Aww.
But you don't mean this.
Not that dress. No, the one from the portrait.
Gotcha. Okay. Cool. Okay, so we've talked about all this. By the way, thank you guys for being on the panel tonight. Appreciate it. And thank you guys for watching. We ran a little bit over, but I think there was some fun stuff to talk about here. It's always fun hanging out with you guys. But this is actually the last time I think we're going to meet with Tyler as a WDWNT staff member. I hope you come back on Deep in the Plus, because I know that you are leaving us. But before you go out, you're going to have you're going to throw yourself a party. Is that correct?
Yes, because no one else would.
Hey-o.
No, it's fine. For the record, I'm not like vanishing. Like I've just other projects and things that I'm gonna be working on instead of doing graphics full time here. So as long as you want me on Deep in the Plus, I'll keep popping up. Hopefully, I was always a person that was on camera before I was a person working full time here. So I think if I hopefully am no longer doing the graphics stuff, I'll still be finishing up, the RPG and watches will be ending next month. But yeah, next on Saturday, graphics time with Tyler. Why is it so tiny? You'll find out. It's going to be a good time. I'm not the only graphics person though, but we're going to be seeing a lot of other stuff that's been made for like the past 3-4 years. Graphics is, had a lot of stuff made for it, so it'll be fun to rewatch it. And as I said in the commercial, it's going to be good to not have anyone interrupt the show this time.
I'm going to have Colleen call in and just cut you
I will
off.
destroy anybody.
We did it.
Join that Google Meet.
We did it twice, and they interrupted it twice. Really, and it was like, okay, yeah. So April 30th, right?
April 30th. This Saturday at 7 should be a good time.
7. Okay, so also next week, Neko, our Wigs member, picked out a movie that she told me we had to do, which was Caravan of Courage, which is an Ewok movie that was placed on Disney Plus. So we put together our Star Wars panel. They're coming back. Desi, you're going to be there, right?
Of course.
And Nick, you said is coming back, right? And
That's
Cosmic
what he
Chris
said, yeah.
Reed.
Hey, yay, Chris!
Yeah, our last Star Wars panel was Ron. Ron is apparently going to spend May the 4th in Disney World with Patrick. So
Well,
whatever, dude. But last year on May the 4th, Chris Reed and I did a review of A New Hope. Maybe you've heard of it. I don't know. It was a little movie that they released. So we will be talking about Caravan of Courage next week for May the 4th. So tune in. We'll be excited to talk about it. But there's something we need to do before we wrap up here, and it's very important. And I think I want to end with Desi tonight on this one. So the question is, you've watched all of the movie. You watched it again. You've seen it before. You've watched it again. We've talked about it probably for longer than we should have, but it's been fun, guys. Thank you so much. But now's the time. I mean, the people need to know, and we're going to start with you, Emma. They need to know. After all of this stuff that has been said about the movie, the music, the magic that is Tarzan, would you, Emma Cooley, switch hats? No, I'm just kidding. And no, I'm just kidding. Would you recommend this movie?
yeah, I'd recommend it. It's a solid Disney classic. I would definitely say don't look at the G rating. Like, definitely it's PG, very much so. So, keep that in mind when you're showing this one to your kids. But yeah, again, great soundtrack, some solid animation. Yeah, watch it.
All right. Tyler Mann?
Yeah, I mean, if you got a boyfriend, definitely watch the movie. There's a lot to look at. It's a great movie, good animation. Everyone is pretty except for the bad guys, and the music is good except for that one song, and that whole song that's just made for toddlers. That's when you go to the bathroom, and it's surprisingly short. It's an hour 22, I think.
It says the runtime is 136, but yeah.
The rest is credits.
Yeah.
It's a good movie. It's a very solid movie that's clearly well thought out and well paced. Things are always happening. Nothing lasts too long except that one Trashing the Cab song. So yeah, I recommend it.
Okay, and Desi?
Not all of the villains are bad looking. You do have your discount Gaston. I also wonder whether gorillas or wolves make better surrogate parents. So who turned out better, Tarzan or Mowgli? But if you want to watch a 90s animated Disney movie, this is probably at the bottom of my list. However, there are worse Disney movies, and this one's not that bad. It's decent. It's good. I would not recommend watching this with young children. At least my kids, it kind of... Watch it with your teenage girls, fine. But maybe my kids are at least young enough that it kind of went over their heads, but it is scary. It is dark. I don't recommend it for little kids. But if you've already gone through the rest of the Renaissance era Disney movies and you're looking for another 90s animated Disney movie, then sure, why not? I think this is fine. I would recommend watching this over Xenon.
Wow, that's big talk. You know what? For me, I would say you absolutely should watch this movie. I love this movie. I didn't remember how much I loved this movie until I rewatched it and had all the feels all over again. And like I said, as the music comes through, it really helps to tell the story. And maybe it's just because I really love the music. I think it's really well done. And I just recently rewatched Brother Bear, and I think the Brother Bear music is also very well done. But this one, it just hits different. It's paced well. Like Tyler said, it's only like 90 minutes. It really. I think it tells the story without telling the same story of Tarzan that we've seen over and over again. It has a little bit of more heart to it. And again, I wish they would do more with it in the parks. I wish they would do more with a lot of stuff in the parks. Hercules, I feel like, needs more presence in the parks. 101 Dalmatians, things like that. So,
I think Hercules was the movie right before Tarzan, wasn't it? And
Mulan, I feel like, was right before Tarzan.
Okay, yeah. 98 Degrees better than NSYNC.
Yeah, that seems like you've got like a like a
but the soundtrack
beef
in Hercules
with the
and
bands.
the soundtrack in Mulan are so much better. I don't know what you guys are smoking, thinking that this Tarzan soundtrack is even close to the Mulan or.
No, that was last week with 420 when we were talking about gummy bears. That's because this is actually good. I don't know what it is. Who hurt you? But maybe it was Phil Collins. I don't know. But if that's the case, then, I don't know. I really think that's good. Sleek Animation Wolf is saying review Tarzan and Jane. I don't think we're going to do that. But you guys could watch that one. I mean, I think that's really a good one. I think that for this one, though, there were a lot of movies in that 10-year span. Obviously, we started in 1989 with The Little Mermaid, and then you get to 1999 and you got Tarzan. There were a lot of movies in that span that really changed the course of Disney animation and a lot of the things that we know in the parks, Lion King, Aladdin. This movie, I think, gets missed in that conversation, and I do think it's a good movie, but I think part of it is it's because its origins are pre-Disney for us. Like something like, there's we have a lot of other references to Tarzan before Disney gets their hands on it. Same thing with Hercules, really. I mean,
Mulan has hundreds, if not thousands of years of history.
It does, but I think that to Americans, I don't think they all knew the story. I think that here, like, we've seen so many Tarzan movies. Was there a Mulan movie?
You mean like adaptations? Like we've seen movies and TV shows of Tarzan before.
There have
Disney.
absolutely been plenty of movies about Hercules before the Disney version.
Yes, I agree. That's what I'm saying. Is I think Tarzan and Hercules both. I think that's stuff we all kind of knew a little bit better. And maybe that's why it was different. Is you really had to sell us on that. When we look at Cinderella, I think we all look at it as the Disney version of Cinderella, right?
You don't want to read the real Cinderella. Same as you don't want to read the real
Little Mermaid. Yeah, the real Little Mermaid. That's a dark one too. Okay. Well, let us know in the comments what you guys think. We'd love to know if this is a movie that you guys like or not. Thank you guys on the panel for being with us. I really appreciate it. And again, our Star Wars panel will be back next week to talk about Caravan of Courage. And thank you guys so much for watching. Anything else from you guys before we go?
Looking forward to seeing you next week. May the 4th be with you.
Unplanned downtime. Oh,
yep.
Wait. Is that? Yeah. I did it right.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yay.
Actually, wait.
There we go.
Tyler,
UD.
wait.
It looks like join our cults. Oh, I don't know.
Yeah, wait, throw that up one more time.
No, because you're gonna make something weird happen.
No, I just want to see it.
Yeah, like that.
I don't.